Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Alpha Insight podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing a good way to look at medications and also what they're supposed to be used for and also how they're being used today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you share this with somebody else. I would appreciate that so much. You could also leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and all the links today will be connected. I'll be providing all the links with all the research and everything backed up on the website, which you could check out. All you have to do is check out Alpha Insight Podcast on Google or whatever platform you're using, Safari, whatever. Check out the website, and then connected to this website, there should be all the links that I'm providing. What I want you to do is, it's never a bad idea to fact check things yourself. I always encourage that. And along with that, there will be the transcripts provided as well. If you like to, read through the episodes or whatever, that's also kind of a cool feature. But welcome to the show. I'm Jameson Riling, and let's get right into today's episode. Okay, so we have gone over some of the stages of depression, and then we've gone over how to make it out of depression and, some of the steps to do that. And then our last episode, or a couple episodes ago, we went over the importance of understanding your own emotions, which I think was pretty good. And then this last episode, we took a little bit of a break and went over seasons in your life and stuff like that and whatever. So instead of following down that I don't know. Okay, today I just want to circle back and go back to the topic of medication and diagnoses, because that one a lot of you enjoyed. It was my most listened to episode this year. And I've had a lot of comments about it, and a lot of people want me to go deeper into that, so I'm going to do that for you guys today. I really encourage you to listen to the end of today's episode, because it's going to provide you with a lot of new insight on things, and I don't even know. We're going to be talking about so much, I don't think you're going to want to turn it off anyways, but the reason I want to go over this topic is because this is something we use on a daily basis, on a day-to-day or daily. This is something we use on a daily to help solve our problems when it shouldn't be. Medication should not be the problem solver in your life. Like how we look at it is, what we do is we're using these meds to solve these diagnoses when what we should be trying to fix here is the symptoms. We're trying to fix the sickness when we should be trying to fix the symptoms of it, I guess. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that as well. But I've noticed, and the research supports, that people go into a psychiatrist and get diagnosed with whatever and start taking meds just because they feel sad or just because they're in a season. And, I talked about seasons last episode, and everybody goes through seasons. Everybody goes through these ups and downs of life, and that's just a part of life. That's just how life goes. There's ups and downs. And oftentimes you could just go into a psychiatrist and you could just be having a bad day and they'll still prescribe you something. I mean, in my situation, basically what happened was I went into the psychiatrist and I was like, hey, I'm sad. And he's like, okay, well, awesome. Here you have this and this and this disorder, and here's all these meds for you. I was on everything. Okay. I was on mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, antidepressants, anxiety meds, like sleep meds for a while, and I mean, I guess I went into a little bit more detail than, hey, I'm sad, but it wasn't, it's easy as 1, 2, 3, It was like I just went in there, and what happened was he didn't even, I guess there wasn't any getting to really know me or understanding the situation. It was just, what can I get you on, And what I've found is that that's actually a very common thing for psychiatrists to do. I was like a zombie for like a long time. But it's not hard to get medication these days. It's like all you have to say is that you're sad, and here you go. Here's all these meds. And you know what actually happened for me was after I had gotten diagnosed and gotten my meds, I went to go see my psychiatrist a couple times after that. And then and one of the meds I was on lithium. And being on lithium, you're supposed to get your labs tested all the time because it's, you know, it messes with your kidneys or something. And so you're supposed to get your labs tested all the time. And basically, my psychiatrist had no cares in the world whatsoever. I'm pretty sure he forgot all about me. But there was no more meetups to see how I'm doing or any of that. It was like he would just refill my prescriptions and no more contact. Like, that's it. And I was like, I don't know. It was just, this is supposed to be the people we go to for help, you know? Like, made me question, like, this is really the people that we're going to for help, and they don't even care, you know? They don't put the time of day into, I don't know, understanding you deeper or any more meetups. I don't know. Since the last time I saw him, it's been a couple of years or a year or something. I don't know. It's been a long time. And what's happened was he just kept refilling the prescriptions. And something about that is just off, you know? That's just sketchy. And people have this thought, you know, it's like, well, this guy's my psychiatrist. He's a professional, you know? But the thing is, you know, this is like some really legit thing, and I've got all these issues, and when really these are the people who are prescribing these to you. At the end of the day, they really don't care. And, you know, let me say this. I'm sure some of them do care, okay? I'm sure some psychiatrists are great, you know? And I'm sure some of them do a great job, okay? And I'm not trying to hate on all psychiatrists here or any of that. But something was sketchy, and I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to look into it a little bit more. Before we get into that whole psychiatrist thing, I want to just talk about meds a little bit. And I'm super excited because this is going to be awesome. I'm actually re-recording this episode because I had some technical difficulties. So, anyways, awesome. So, things to know about medication before we get started. Number 1, medication will not solve your problems. Medication will not solve your problems. And it shouldn't be used as a crutch. I mean, I guess in some circumstances it should. I'll explain myself. Just give me a second. Number 2, you do not need to be on medication to be normal. Wow. And that's something I had struggled with for a very long time, you know, and a lot of other people do. It's like, oh, I don't have my medication. Well, I'm not going to be normal. It's like, no, my friend, you're not normal when you're on your medication. You've been created in a very specific way. And just because you're feeling off doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Just because things are going wrong and you may be depressed for a while does not mean that there's something wrong with you. And I don't mean to say this it's a very common thing. It is important. It's very important. I don't mean to say it in a way that makes it seem like your situation is not important, because it is important. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I know it's important and I care that it's important. But everybody goes through phases, you know, whether they're down or depressed, anxious, you know, whatever it may be. But that's just a part of life. As we discussed in the previous episode, that's just a part of life. And just because you're in a season of depression or sadness doesn't mean that you need medication to make you normal again, okay? Because you don't. Number 3, medication is okay for a period of time. While I personally don't think it should be a source of you go to, I do think that it is okay in some circumstances, you know. So these days, I don't even know many people who like aren't on meds, because everybody's on something these days. But I don't know. I guess not everybody. Okay. Not everybody. But in my opinion, they should only be used in extreme situations, in extreme circumstances. But now it's like meds are being thrown around like candy these days. It's like, I don't even know. It's the most common thing. And, what medication is supposed to be for, this one's important right here. What meds are supposed to be for is when you're at the lowest of lows, and you've tried everything else I discussed in the past. That episode talking about 4 steps to making it out. Yeah. Everything in that, and other things, you've tried everything, like getting your sleep schedule right, getting sober. And yeah, I know some of you guys don't like hearing that because it could be annoying when you're, whatever. But like this stuff is the stuff that actually works. I think medication should only be used in very extreme situations when it's like you've tried everything else and you've got nowhere else to go. When you're at the lowest of lows and you like have nowhere else to go, really, then I think it's okay to do that. But I don't think that meds should be your first thing to go to. And it's like, what does that teach you? It teaches you that it's okay to run away from your problems. And it's just like, use this substance to make you feel better. It's the same thing. I don't know. And medications, it's not like this. It's not like this whole, it's just an imbalance in my brain. And honestly, is it? Like maybe it could be. Maybe some of it could be, but some of this stuff is like you got real problems. It's like chemical imbalance. It's like a way for them to say you need this because, I don't know. It's just like the pharmaceutical company's way of getting you on their stuff. And I don't know. I've got a lot of thoughts on that whole thing. But it's like the whole chemical imbalance thing is like, yeah, don't get me wrong. That does happen, but a lot of it you could fix just getting sleep or getting sober. And I'm not saying everything could be fixed from that, but a lot of things can be fixed from, organic ways. And you don't need some chemical to fix that, But anyways, sorry. So I think medications should be used. They should not be used if you feel sad, because then you gain a dependence on them. And when you start taking them, you should know that the purpose of medication is not to make you normal again. The purpose of them is to calm you down enough and, relax your mind enough and your feelings and whatever enough so that you could start learning how to strengthen your mind. You could start using the tools that you're given through like therapy and whatever to start teaching your mind how to cope with this, and like teaching yourself how to deal with my emotions and how to really think about this situation, stuff like that. In the previous episode seasons, when I talked about setting your boundaries and self-discipline goals and get all that stuff in the good season, it's like that when you're on meds. It's like meds are for like calming you down enough so that you can start figuring out what's really going on, so that you can figure out what's the root cause of what's actually going on, so that you could start trying to fix the symptoms and not just the illness. But they're not like the solution, Like I don't know why, but everybody's just got this thing where it's like my meds are my solution. And it's like I'm normal when I'm on my meds, and it's like meds are like the end goal for people, when that should be like not. And I had that mentality for a very long time. But no, you're not normal on your meds. Like they're just, I know I may have been very repetitive here, but I just want you to know they're not going to solve your problem, the problem. So number three was medications are okay for a period of time. So medications are okay in very extreme circumstances for a period of time. so that they can calm you down enough so that you can start working through whatever's going on. That's it. They shouldn't be like a 2-year-long prescription and you're like a lifetime prescription. That's BS. You don't need that. And I'm actually super stoked to announce that I, just within this last month, finally got off of all my meds. It was a very long journey for me because I had, every time I'd lower my dose, I'd get very sick and, whatever. So it was a very long journey for me to get off of them, but I finally got completely off of them and I feel great. So that's awesome. Super stoked about that. And okay, one more thing to talk about right here, I guess, is some people who who take meds because it helps them just get through the day. It maximizes their day. It helps them, I don't know, just get through the day. Some people say like, hey, my meds are working great for me because, my days are going better and I can, I've been super stressed lately and whatever. It's like, trust me, I get it. Okay. I get it. But at some point, you're going to have to start learning how to do that on your own. It's like, I don't think that's a great idea to be, that's like, you could become very dependent on your meds or whatever. And maybe you're just on them for some period of time. I don't know. That's totally up to you. That's totally your choice to do. Okay. I don't completely hate them and whatever. I just have, my beliefs on them and strong beliefs on them. But, everybody's different. And if you're on them and you're like, Jameson, screw this. I'm not, I like my meds and whatever, that's totally fine. Okay. I respect that. All right. I just want you to be aware of this, is that, they're not helping you in the long term. And that's just what I want you to know here. Okay. So yes, you could be on them and whatever, and you could say, screw you, Jameson, I like my meds and whatever, but at least I'm showing you my point of view. Anyways, so we talked about this in number 3. Number 4, medications should be the last thing you go to. And if you do, only take it for a short period of time. And yeah, I already talked about all that. So I got ahead of myself a little bit. And I didn't even know I was talking about it. So awesome. So before you go on your meds, or even if you're on your meds, I would encourage you to check out my episode called The 4 Steps to Making It Out. The 4 steps in that episode are like key ingredients to helping your mental state. 4 steps you should try before you get on any medications. So you may be thinking, why do you disagree with meds, Jameson? What's your issue, man? What did they ever do to anybody, Jameson, just relax, man. Meds aren't that bad. Just chill. You're taking it way too far. Okay. I'm speaking as a person who was on them for years, and I was dependent on them for a long time. And, medications affect your body over time, okay? They affect your body in negative ways over time. It's like that 1% thing that I talked about, when it's like you don't realize the 1%. Why am I explaining this to you like you're 2 years old? Okay. It's like a year after doing that one thing and gaining a little bit, like 1% every day. Long-term effect, people. Medications affect your body over time. Like, just like any drug, addiction, substance, it'll make you feel good for a moment while it's affecting your body and your mind in a negative way over time. It's rewiring your brain and it's blocking off things. It's, whatever it's doing in your brain. It's like naturally your body is not meant to be on that, It's like if you think about it, way back in the day, people weren't on meds. They, when they were sad, they got work to do, so I got to go do their work in the field. And, I don't know what they were doing, like Bible times or whatever, I don't know. Maybe they were like eating fruits and veggies and start feeling better, I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Like, people back then weren't taking a bunch of chemicals to make themselves feel better, and now all of a sudden all these chemicals are good for us. It's like I don't know, something sketchy. If you look up, this one's kind of fun. So if you look up whatever meds you're on currently, you can find like the organs that they affect specifically, and like what they do to your body, and like what they do to your brain over time. It's actually pretty fun to do, but it's also kind of scary at the same time. So be careful on that one. But on top of that, it's like it's like a crutch that you use to think you're okay. So as an example, it took me a very long time to even want to get off of my meds because I thought I was going to have to rely on them the rest of my life. Like, I thought I was all messed up in my head, and I thought that this was going to be something I was going to have to rely on the rest of my life. I had it in my brain I had it in my mind that I was like, something's wrong with you. You'll never be normal again. You'll never be the same. And your mind is all messed up. You can't live without it or without these the rest of your life. And for a period of time, yeah, I was like crazy, okay? I don't think it was a bad thing for me to be on meds for, that period of time. I think it was a good thing. But the lack of, the period of time that I was on them for and the lack of care that my psychiatrist showed was not super awesome. But it's like, yeah, I was on them for a while, and I do think that I needed to be on them for a while. But that shouldn't be a rest of your life kind of thing. Antipsychotics have a tendency to cause permanent brain damage from long-term use, while antidepressants have been linked to weight gain, diabetes, and blood sugar regulation, also leading to Alzheimer's. Ooh, that's fun. Unable to feel positive emotions, and the list goes on. And this isn't even the tip of the iceberg, people. I got this from a website, and these are all credited websites like .gov and, whatever. So if you want to fact check me before you just don't believe what I'm saying, you could feel free to just look it up for yourself. This stuff is so real. And also, if you just choose to believe me, also fact check it, It's never a bad thing. So this is like legit stuff, and you can find these websites on, the website. Just check it out. So yeah, your meds can help, yes, but they're rarely regulated by your doctors and psychiatrists and can become the problem, When I was taking meds, the doctor didn't even check in on me. Like I said, psychiatrists didn't even care, and lithium is one of the things where you're supposed to get your labs tested like a lot. And I don't know, it's a huge money-making scheme. Okay, so right now we're switching from meds to psychiatrists. Okay, a little bit of a topic change, but it's like a huge money scheme for the higher-ups. Okay, so now I'm not going to get into the whole higher-ups thing right now. That's for another season. I've got a lot to say about that, and I don't want to freak you out, so you're going to think I'm so crazy, but yeah, I'm going to save the conspiracy theories for another season, probably. Maybe I won't talk about it on here at all, but who knows. Psychiatrists get paid from pharmaceutical companies to prescribe their medications. And I keep hearing from people, they're like, well, psychiatrists get all their money only if they prescribe you things, which is why they prescribe all the time. And, well, that's not true. I did a lot of looking into this, and that's not true. They still get paid, even if they don't prescribe you with anything, as like a walk-in fee, but they don't make nearly as much as they would if they did prescribe you. And it's also shown that psychiatrists get paid from these big pharmaceutical companies to prescribe their medications, and I have proof for this. So hear me out, okay? This is the good stuff here, okay? Isn't that just crazy though, and how somebody you think could be helping you is really just making loads of money every time they prescribe these meds to somebody. I don't know. That's all sketchy to me. I don't know. And I'm not going to get into the whole conspiracy crap right now because, whatever, but it's something to think about here. Like, does your psychiatrist really have your best interest? And I'm sure some of them do, yes. I'm sure a lot of them do, okay? But I'm just saying these are things to think about, So diagnoses, they don't... Okay, so we're switching to diagnoses right now from psychiatrists, from meds or whatever. Diagnoses, they don't make you. What I mean by that is, I had a friend, I actually did the same thing. So I'm not blaming her whatsoever because I did the same thing for a long time. But I had a friend and I was talking with her and I was like, hey, how are you doing? And she was like, honestly, I'm not doing so great. And I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I was like, okay, so what's going on, And she said, I just have to wait till tomorrow. I'm nervous for tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, so what do you mean? She's like, tomorrow I'm getting my diagnosis. And I was like, what? And she said, well, tomorrow I get to find out if I have, I don't remember what it was called. She took this test to see if she had some certain mental disorder or whatever, mental illness, I guess. And she's like, tomorrow I'll be fine once I know, but I'm scared if I end up having it. And I was like, well, that's just interesting, It's crazy to think she was like so scared and worried that she was going to be diagnosed with this thing, but that doesn't change anything, whether she got the diagnosis or not. And I was just thinking about it and I was like, so you're stressing out here. You're all worried that you're going to have this diagnosis. And I was like, so if you get this diagnosis, what's going to change? Nothing. Nothing's going to change. So why are you freaking out about it so much, It's like, I don't know, but you see what I'm saying here. I hope you get the point that I'm trying to make here. It's like she was all worked up and so stressed out about it and that she was going to get this diagnosis when, at the end of the day, it's like, just because you get diagnosed with something doesn't mean that that's going to change anything. That doesn't mean anything. You're still going to be the same person, And it's like, you don't need some diagnosis to tell you who you are, Whether you have this disorder or that disorder, it's like you're the same person. And you still choose how you think and how you act and, how you behave and what you do. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, for a long time, when I had heard all of my diagnoses, I was like, oh, great. Well, I'm screwed, Like, the rest of my life is over, and I'm going to be like this forever, And I totally messed up in my head, and because that's what all these psychiatrists were telling me, and I was like, great, I'm never going to get better. This sucks, and whatever. When in reality, I was like all stressed out, and I was like all mad and sad about it. And I was like, I'm diagnosed with this and that. But at the end of the day, it didn't change anything. The diagnosis doesn't change anything. But also something to say there is, I had another friend who just would excuse everything that he was doing because of his diagnosis. It was like, oh, well, I'm an angry person and I hate people because I've got this disorder. And I'm so awkward in public because I've got that disorder. And it's like, you're blaming everything on your disorder, and when are you going to, take responsibility? It's like, yes, that may be some contributor to it, to what's going on, but you ultimately have the choice on how you act and how you behave. You ultimately get to choose who you are, not some diagnosis. A diagnosis doesn't mean that that's who you are. If I was living off of my diagnosis, I would be, instead of me right now, I'd be depressed, anxious, and mentally unstable with, manic episodes. But no, I had to choose who I wanted to be. I was like, that's not me. Just because some diagnosis says that does not mean that shapes me into, that makes me who I am. And so number two of diagnoses, they may be used to understand yourself. But just because you have the diagnosis doesn't mean that dictates your life. You see what I'm saying here? You may use the diagnosis to understand yourself a little bit better, which, I mean, a lot of diagnoses, by the way, are completely fake, referring to mine, which were a spur of the moment decision or calculation from some psychiatrist who doesn't know anything about me. So a lot of these diagnoses are fake, just because you fill out the yes, I'm sad in the bubble, and you fill out the bubbles and they come back with the diagnoses and they're like, oh, you're all screwed in the head. So Okay, I've got a story here. So my buddy, we used to be really close, but kind of drifted apart recently. We're on kind of different life paths right now, but it's sad to see sometimes, honestly, because every time I do see him, he refers to how I'd be like, Jameson, I know why I'm so awkward in these situations. It's because of my whatever disorder. And also, I know why I'm so violent all the time. And I know why I'm so angry with people all the time. It's because I have this and this and this disorder. And it's just, I don't know. What I'm saying here is, where I'm getting at with this is, he's using his diagnoses to excuse his behavior. Well, Jameson, I have low self-discipline because of this. It's like, it's all part of my disorder. Jameson, I can't go to the gym because I'm clinically depressed. Whatever it is, you can make an excuse for anything these days, really anything. And it's like he's excusing his behavior because, he believes that this stuff is okay just because he has some diagnosis, and don't get me wrong, I did that for a long time too, but what I'm saying here is that's not okay, because diagnoses are not it doesn't change anything about you. It's not an excuse card. It's not a get out of jail free card. What I'm saying here is diagnoses can be used to help understand yourself a little bit better, but that doesn't mean that changes anything. You're still you. You're still the person who grew up as a kid climbing trees and playing outside with his friends or whatever, the kid who loves to go outside in the woods and, whatever. You're still the same person. And what my friend is doing is he's using his diagnoses to create a new reality for himself and dictate his life. He's using them in a way that's not only makes it so he excuses his behavior, but that's not okay, but he uses that as a way of, well, I have no point in life. There's no point in trying anymore. He tells me all the time, it's like, well, I'm so messed up, so there's no point in trying anymore. And it's like, getting your meds right and getting your chemicals balanced is not going to solve your anger problem, You have to deal with the anger problem, not the diagnosis. You see what I'm saying here? You deal with the problem and not the diagnosis. And that's just something he won't do. And, many other people won't do. I mean, me too, for a long time. It's like I was sitting here trying to solve the diagnosis when I wasn't looking at the problem. Because at the end of the day, the diagnosis doesn't mean anything. Because you still have the ability and the choice to act how you act. So number 3, you choose who you should be and who you are, no matter what diagnosis you have. At the end of the day, diagnoses or not, medications or not, you choose who you should be and who you are. I just want you to think about that for, this week. If you haven't gotten your goals and whatever, I really want you guys to get your goals as well. And I want you to get your goals for 2024. That would be awesome. I had a couple people send those in already. Super stoked to see that, and I really appreciate you guys. If you were one of those people, I really appreciate that. But at the end of the day, my friend, I just want you to think about it this week. What are some actions or beliefs that I have that I'm making excuses for because of my circumstances or my situations or my diagnoses? What are some things that I'm just excusing to be okay just because of some diagnosis? And when you start asking that question, it can be kind of frustrating, because then you kind of start really seeing yourself in a different light. But it's a very important question to ask. Without stopping to ask yourself that, it's like I don't know. But just start looking at some of the things this week some of the things that maybe you do or don't do, or maybe there's some things you've given up on. Maybe some things, whenever you've stopped trying on, or maybe it's like you were on this great journey, you had all these goals or whatever. Maybe you didn't, and you just gave it all up because you were diagnosed with depression. Maybe you were, gave up on everything and started taking all these drugs and whatever because you were diagnosed with anxiety. Maybe you just, and one thing I noticed about that is people, the people who say YOLO, you only live once. Yeah, you only live once, so why wouldn't you want to strive to make it the best? Instead of filling it with a bunch of fake people and fake, happiness, going to parties and, whatever, why would you do that when you could, really push yourself and find true joy? I don't know. I've got a lot to say about the whole YOLO thing and whatever, but that's for another episode. So, and you stop going the extra mile. And you're like, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to change anyways. You know what, my friend? You're not going to change if you think that way. If you don't let yourself change, then you're not going to change. And that's one thing that I had to learn. So, my friend, with all that said, all of that stuff that we talked about today, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you learned something, as always, and I hope you just start thinking, about these things. Start thinking about your diagnosis, or maybe some excuses you've made, or whatever it is. It's just so crazy when you start actually realizing what kind of excuses that you're making. But anyways, my friends, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you think it would help anybody, I would really, really appreciate it if you'd share this to somebody. If you think it may help, maybe post it on your stories. I know that may take a second, but if you want to check out those links, I've got plenty of them provided on the website connected with this episode. Feel free to check those out as well. Also, some other news. I'm doing a backpack drive for homeless people this Christmas, and I did it last Christmas with my skateboard company, Bearded Skate Co. You may have seen it on the Instagram or Facebook page as I've been posting about it. But last year went crazy, and it was around 100 backpacks last year, and we handed them out to homeless people around Denton and Dallas, Texas, and this year I'm doing it again. You can check it out. All the details are on the Instagram page at Bearded Skate Co., or also I'll be posting about it on the Alpha Insight podcast pages as well. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to serve the homeless people this Christmas, and we're trying to share, that we've been blessed. Every single one of us have been blessed, and we've been loved, and we've been given grace. And I want to get my community, I want to get everybody around to realize that same thing. Everybody, every single one of you we've been blessed, and I want you to help contribute, and share that same thing to other people. So we're packing backpacks with all the daily essentials that somebody may need, and we're going out and we're handing those out to homeless people. It's going to be awesome. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me, direct message me, or whatever you want to do. So awesome. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you, my friend. Have a great week. All right. Thank you.